Okay, this is not an update at all. This is just an idea that I came up with in chemistry class just because I was bored and we were going over notes and stuff, and so I was like kind of thinking about like a game idea. And it's kind of like Spore, except my idea is more in depth than Spore, and it's not for I don't know. Spore seems to be more viewed centered or viewed centered. It's gonna be more for like easily played by small children, or maybe like people in elementary school at least. Maybe you still consider them small children. I don't know. When I think of small children, I think like 4 and 5. Whatever. So like what it is you don't start out life. You kind of like try to start life. Like there are these set combinations in the game. You have to like you start out as like an atom, and this is part of the chemistry part, but the rest really isn't. Yeah, like you start as an atom, and the life form is based off of what you end up creating. And sometimes like you have to combine with other atoms and stuff, and maybe you have to try and avoid different ones until you eventually get like a certain kind. I don't really know how this would work, but you get like a certain ones like you know how life on Earth is carbon based. Like I don't know, maybe like make a silicon based life form because I know there are not. I don't know about reality, but I know there are some in like science fiction games, silicon-based ones. So I don't know. Maybe we have evidence that shows maybe there's a possibility of silicon-based life forms. I don't know. Um, so stuff like that. Like, and sometimes you won't get combinations that'll work. Like I really don't know how you go about doing it, but something like that. I know I sound like an idiot right now, like, but that's only one atom, and you have to combine them, and yeah, I don't know how it would work really. Um, but yeah, like I don't know, maybe like placing atoms in such a fashion to where they're like really like dense or something, kind of like how in a diamond, all it really is carbon that's just structured in such a way that makes it really, really hard. So I don't know, maybe something like that, and then of course there'd be other elements thrown in there to create a life form. But I mean, of course, you're not like creating one from scratch, like every single atom or anything. But like just stuff like that, just creating the base for it, I guess. And then after that, you move on to a cell stage, but it's actually a cell, not like Spore, where you're just a fish. Those look nothing like cells. So like a literal cell stage, like you go through it like that. They're still like silly and stuff, but it'll actually look realistic. You'll actually go through division. You won't find another fish and mate with it. You'll just go through division. You'll be a bit smaller. So there's a bit of a bad thing through through division, but you need it to evolve. But of course, if you do go through division, then there's more of you, and like it's kind of like I don't know. It's not going to be completely like what a cell would be like. It's kind of like I'm saying this as if I'm going to create the game. I don't know how to make games at all. This is just something that I came up with, and I thought I'd post a video about it. So like it'll kind of have like a hunting kind of aspect to it, I guess. You'll generally stay in a pack. If you divide, the other one will generally stay somewhere in your vicinity, not necessarily like right next to you or anything. But if you start attacking something, most of the time it'll come and help you. And then so the more you divide, the more allies you have, but also the smaller you are. And your goal, I guess, is to get larger and find other cells to combine with. And then you move on to like a creature stage, and depending on which cells you combined with, like in the cells would be like randomized or something. Like it wouldn't be a set certain amount. Like there'd be all these different types, and if you combine them together, then they'll create different stuff. And then you get on to like a creature stage, and the evolution in that, how it works is, unlike Spore, you wouldn't choose what happens really. Like depending on how you decide to have the creatures react with others. So I don't know if it'd be like an RTS or if it would be still just one creature, but it kind of is how all the other creatures would act or something. but like depending on the actions that you make them take, then they will evolve in such a way. So like if you don't have them using their hearing very much, then they might end up having very few ranges of hearing, but they'd have really good sight, or vice versa. If you don't have them using sight very much, mainly hearing or something else like touch, then that would be very sensitive and stuff like that. Like if they're very like aggressive, then they'd eventually evolve like some sort of higher attacking mechanism, and being like in a group if you want them to be like that, changing if they're social, and then eventually they'd evolve to have like sentience, and then from that you've I guess it maybe become like a tribal slash city builder. They go off and do whatever attacking. You kind of have like a bit of aspect on what they do, like telling them to attack this place, but you don't get to choose what units. You don't make the units, they create the units and everything. They create the population, they just go attack, and you create like the city and such. And again, you still have some aspects, and depending on how you create the city, depends on how they'll end up being later on. Like even if they were aggressive before, most of the buildings that you have will be centered around warfare. Well, besides like, the basic stuff like food, places, just like housing, stuff like that. But other than that, they'd be centered more around warfare than like, I don't know, music and dance and other festivities and such like that. Um, Whereas if you were like peaceful, I guess there'd be more like, as I said, music, dance, stuff like that. Like, I don't know, like tribal parade. I don't know. Like also like combining with other tribes, but instead of like in Spore where there's like tons of different creatures, there's only your species, but there's from like different aspects. Maybe one other species that is like similar to yours, kind of like the whole Neanderthal, Homo sapien thing. And depending on what you do, the other species could get wiped out, I guess. If you're like friendly, then and none of the other tribes that are of your species kill them. Like it's not all centered around yours. It's not like, oh, you did this, so so whatever you do, we're all gonna do too, or like you didn't kill them, so they're still gonna be alive. No, it's like there's a set amount of tribes of them. I don't know, maybe they can set up more tribes and eventually become like, their own little city. And depending on what the other tribes slash villages slash towns or whatever, depending on what level of civilization evolution they're at, I guess, then they can decide whether or not to wipe out the other species. And if they decide to, then they do. And if maybe the other species contracts some sort of disease randomly and their entire species is wiped out, I don't know, random events like that might be interesting if this were to be a real game. I don't know. I'm just thinking of this as if I were to create a game, but I know I can't do this ever because I have no clue how to make games. I don't think I ever will either. Yeah, so your tribe eventually like evolves into like small towns and cities and stuff. And eventually you move on to the next stage, which is still gonna be kind of the same, I guess, just like an actual city, like a modern day kind of thing, except again, centered around what they were like. It could be very, very similar to the cities that we have now, or they could be extremely like, peace and love and all this, or it could be like extremely militaristic. You have one nation fighting the other, but it really wouldn't be like a city builder, I guess. It'd be more of a military slash peace thing. Like, I don't know, you're the president, pretty much, something, or I don't know, you're some omnipotent being that tells this one country what to do. And you either have to conquer everyone or ally with everyone in the world, or ally with some of them and then kill the rest, or kill most of them but ally with some of them. I don't know how that would work, because I'd be afraid of you, but maybe you could get it to work somehow. And then after that, it's the space stage. You're your own nation. Yeah, like the planet's unified under like, I don't know, maybe like an iron fist, or maybe they're unified under peace and love or whatever. And then you go off colonizing. Then it's not like Spore where you're just your one ship and you colonize. Like legitimate colonizing, like terraforming and all that at first. No terraforming, like maybe a bit of lower level terraforming kind of things, like some ideas like I know there's one idea for Mars where people want to place this bacteria on it that is very good at surviving the elements, like really, really extreme elements. So I think maybe they could put them there to produce oxygen, but first they'd have to put like machines that purposely pollute the atmosphere. But the only problem is magnetic field. So I don't know, maybe in the game there's like this device that you eventually discover that can create magnetic fields, depending on what you research. Because of course there'd have to be some sort of research in the city, the nation kind of thing, and maybe some sort of research in tribal as well, but probably not. But definitely in space stage. And then so you could research a tree that can get you to that. It's not like it's I don't know, it'd be more like a realistic type of research, like I don't know, you're researching better food preservation, but in the process one of your scientists messes with some chemicals and they end up finding out how to make like a very effective poison or whatever. I mean, I don't know what you'd use it for, because for all you know, there's no alien life, but eventually maybe you'd find some, like, there's a random possibility of you finding life. And then eventually after you colonize enough planets and such, terraform enough, and then colonize them, of course time would go by a lot faster than normal, or else the game would just go by so slowly for terraforming and such, because terraforming would take hundreds of years, or thousands. And then, like, other planets that you've colonized could would rebel, or else the game wouldn't be that fun, I suppose. And then eventually, maybe if you go far enough out of your like little area of space, you'll find other alien races that'll either want to kill you or love you or whatever. You know, stuff like that. I don't know, I think it'd be pretty interesting. Like, you know, like kind of like a more realistic and in-depth Spore for the first part, but then after creature stage, I guess it's not really Spore anymore now. Anything like Spore now, is it? But I think that's pretty cool. It doesn't really matter, I guess. But again, I just wanted to say this. So, yeah, goodbye.